Our first pick on the papers this morning is the Blueprint newspaper, which leads with conditions of LG councils worrisome, as according to Tinubu Nabas, third tier of government in bondage, CX should be scrapped. That's according to Fagbemi, the AGF. Find out the details of that on the inside pages of the paper. And right under that story, court restrains Adobayero, 4 others as Kano emirs. KNSG seeks Tinubu's intervention. Find the details of that one also continue on the inside pages. That same story leads the Nigerian Tribune today. Court orders police to evict Bayero from Kano Palace. Bars him, 4 others from parading themselves as emirs. Security uncovers plots to attack assembly complex, important places. Kano government begs Tinubu to move Bayero out of state. Deputy governor apologizes to NSA, withdraws allegations of connivance. Find the details of that story on page 3 of the paper this morning. Daily Independent leads with AGF makes case for scrapping of state electoral commissions, says they are appendage to every incumbent governor. Once functions, powers transferred to INEC. AGF Zekome won against legislative fiat on national anthem. At the bottom of that picture on the front page, we can't be intimidated over our decisions on Sanusi, as according to Kano government. Court orders Bayero, 4 others to stop parading themselves as emirs. Orders police to evict deposed Bayero from palace. The Nigerian News Direct is interested in northern governors pledge 5% budget allocation to help over 4 million IDPs. Find the details of that story on page 23 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. The Nigerian Observer, FG injects 309 billion naira into agriculture amidst calls for year-round irrigation from dams. Wouldn't that be exciting and wonderful? The details on the front page continues on the inside pages of the paper. Daily Trust, FG wants state electoral bodies scrapped. And look at the writers. Why governors are against LG autonomy, according to State Assembly's speakers. Empowering LG's key to national security. That's the lead story of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The Guardian, amid penetration surge, Nigerians spent over 500 billion naira on data in Q1. Find out the details on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. On the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, Labour, private sector operators bicker over minimum wage. And look at the writers. Organized Labour's 497,000 naira demand unrealistic, according to presidency, adds affordability key to arriving at any figure. NLC seeks minimum wage for journalists in Nigeria, cautions against harassment by security agencies. Find the details of that one on page 8 of the paper this morning. The Daily Times newspaper is interested in this one. Nigeria Air remains suspended. Says ownership structure of suspended airline not beneficial to Nigeria. Nigeria, Saudi Arabia to revive cargo flight operations, that's according to Kiyamo. Business Day newspaper, Naira falls, external reserves dip despite FX reforms. Find the details of that one also on the inside pages of the paper this morning. And that's the much of the papers we have for you today, which is your own take.
Well, whatever your take is, you certainly can send them to our handles, Sunrise Daily at channelstv.com and Sunrise Daily Now on the platform X. Well, just in case you're wondering what it is that I'm thinking, quite a number of stories catching my fancy this morning. Vanguard newspapers has this lead headline, Labour, private sector operators bicker over minimum wage. That's the lead story right there. Organized Labour's 497,000 demand unrealistic. 497,000 naira demand unrealistic, according to the presidency. Adds that affordability is key to arriving at any figure. And then you also find that rider there, which is also in bold print. NLC seeks minimum wage for journalists in Nigeria, cautions against harassment by security agents. And I'm smiling because You know, I have to ask, is that an attempt to make sure that we're on the same side in this fight? You know, that journalism remain neutral. After all, the NLC is also pushing for journalists as well. Well, I don't know what the answer to that will be, but page 8 is where you'll find details. It's certainly something to take another look at. But I think that we need to be able to move away from bickering. Clearly, 497,000 naira, whilst it might be desirable, might not exactly be realistic. If that is where the minimum is going to start from, we also have to think about what implications that will be for inflation, you know, whether people in the private sector will be able to afford it and all. But at the same time, I think we will also plead with government to say, look, government and the private sector to be more realistic about the current economic realities. How much do they really think is fair enough for the least served worker in Nigeria to be able to take home at the end of the month, if we continue to insist that the only way we can pay workers is at the end of the month? Are we not thinking weekly pay? Are we thinking hourly wages in such a way that people can work in one place? When they're done spending the number of hours they'll spend there, they can go to another place to look for another job. People can work 2 to 3 jobs to be able to, you know, put something decent together. Because from what we have seen, since we like to copy other climes, what we have seen is that hourly wages is what we get. The minimum wage is set by the hour, and employers know that they can calculate, this is how much I'll pay, you know, at the end of every hour. You as an employee can decide how many hours you want to be able to work with an employer, especially at the low cadre level. And I think that, you know, maybe there's another way that Labour and the federal government and even the private sector can begin to look at if this costs. You know, this will continue to prove quite difficult for them and Labour to be able to reach a compromise. But this constant bickering, while people are still suffering, because let's not forget that fuel subsidy was taken away since May last year, is already a year now, and people have been living on this minimum wage. There is hardship in the land. So it is important that the federal government and labor organizations reach a compromise quickly in a way that is realistic and also, you know, helps to, you know, buoy the economy and prevent people from getting into the kinds of things they ought not to be getting into. Ayo.
Well, I'll just put that word bickering, Maokwe, into one of those dockets that, you know, just a word, right? So maybe we should use some synonyms. Maybe, I don't know. I've not read the story, but please do as well. But there is no doubt that everything you said, Maokwe, is quite salient. And I'm hoping that everyone has factored everything. And of course, you know, we're going to be talking about local government administration. I know all the talk about that one as well this morning. Can they afford 497,000 naira monthly for the gardener? Paint the picture. Let's so we understand, you know, where that is all of that is going. But you know, the one that takes my fancy this morning, Maokwe, is on the front page of the Nigerian Observer, which leads with the fact that the federal government has injected about 309 billion naira into agriculture amidst calls for year-round irrigation from dams. It is first of all cheering to know that the federal government indeed has injected so much money. Of course, the details you'll find on the front page of the Nigerian Observer this morning, because we remember the president in the just as about the time that he came into power, decided, you know what, guys, we need to declare a state of emergency on food security in the country. So this is perhaps in that regard. However, my question continues to be collaboration between the federal and the state governments. Collaboration, regional collaboration among the states. We have seen that it can work because it worked between Lagos and Kebbi. Are there other states engaged in that kind of partnership as well? It is cheering to know that the Minister of Solid Minerals is having conversations with state governments, particularly the ones that are rich in mineral resources. There's hardly any state in Nigeria that isn't. to ensure that the needful is done and then the states are secure and they are not thrown into confusion simply because they have mineral resources. That's amazing, that's cheering. So it is that partnership that we need to expedite and propel as much as we can. I mean, there is a state in this country we call the food basket of the country, the food basket of the nation. Please, how big is this basket now? And then all of the things that need to go into the value chain, the logistics of moving food around, the packaging, the storage. Have we been able to cut down on the wastages that come as a result of post-harvest activities? All of these are amazing things, but please, it's about time we got working. Calls for year-round irrigation from dams isn't even much of a thing. Agriculture has gone way beyond all of these. We now have what they call urban agriculture. You can literally farm on the wall of your house. You can farm in the air. You can farm on the sea. These things are all over the world. And it's not because Nigerians don't have the brain. We know that Nigerians are an amazingly ingenious set of people. Give us the wings and we will fly. That's my take this morning, my friend.
All right, Ayo, I think we can successfully wrap up the paper segment and wait for the take of our viewers. We hope that you have found a story or two which catches your fancy and might want to let us know on our feedback handles. Well, we'll take a break at this moment and we'll be back to sink our teeth shortly into the issues of the day. I already hinted you about the AGF, I don't want to say the AGF's onslaught, but I'm looking for a better word, the AGF's onslaught to save the local governments. Is this something that will fly with the National Assembly, especially with the constitutional amendment already ongoing? And also, what would be the verdict? What do we expect to be the verdict of the Supreme Court come the 30th of May? In a moment, please stay with us.